Hello everybody, it's Cyan the Tortet here, avoiding life and responsibilities by making another cliche furry video. How the heck you doing? Today, I'm making a video about how to make a fursona. Disclaimer, you can make a fursona however you wish. As long as you feel like it represents you and it makes you happy and it's a representation of your creativity, and then you just do what you want. But if you're like me and you're a bit particular about how you'd like to create characters and all that stuff, then I feel like this video would be helpful. So the first step is picking a species. So you have many options. There are many different species out there that you could pick from. I would say try to pick a species that you feel like represents you or is significant to you in some way. Like, for example, the cat part of Cyan is because I relate to cats in the way that they express themselves. Like, one minute they're serious and regal, and the next minute they're flipping over a couch or like standing on their hind legs and walking around all, like when cats just flip out and just kind of do weird things. I felt like that represented me a lot, and the way that cats tend to befriend people, like people often misunderstand their body language and stuff, but when cats decide to love you and trust you, then they can be very sweet and very attention seeking, which is very relatable for me. So I would say pick an animal that has some sort of significance to you. Personally, I think it would be cool, if you tried picking animals that aren't as common in the fandom. Like, there's so many different types of animal species that people just don't really even use, and I feel like that's a shame because I feel like those animals deserve some sort of recognition as well. But again, you can do what you want. You also have the option of either using a fictional furry species like manakits, Dutch angel dragons, sergals, whatever else. Just make sure that the species is actually open for you to use. Do not make a fursona based on a fictional furry species that is not open for you to use. So, for example, tortats are not an open species. You cannot make a tortat. I've given a couple friends permission to make tortat OCs, but chances are if you're watching this video and you've never heard me say, hey, you can do that, then you probably can't, so I would appreciate it if you didn't. There are tons of species that you can't make characters for technically, but you can buy them off of people, like either when the original maker is selling them or when approved, people sell the designs, so you can wait for that and you can just buy a design off of somebody. That'd be pretty neat. Personally, I just rather create it myself. If you want to, you could just make up your own species. It doesn't even have to be a real thing. Like, tortats aren't a real thing. And I picked all the aspects of a tortat, which is, I think, cat, sloth, and turtle. They're aspects of all those animals in tortats based on things that I related to. Like, I already talked about cats. Aquatic turtles, I really like aquatic turtles, and I've always felt a connection to water. Especially, I love sitting by rivers or dipping my feet in the pool or going swimming. I don't actually like the ocean that much, but other types of waters like lakes, rivers, swamps, and stuff, I've always felt a connection with those types of places. So I wanted to have that aspect of myself represented in Cyan. So she has the chest plate that you can't really see now because I'm not in full suit. She also has webbed paws, and she has gills. You can't see the gills unless she swims because they close up when she's on land, so she can breathe like a normal mammal. You can have aspects of different species that you would like to, that you relate to or would like to see in there. You don't even have to, it doesn't even have to be like an animal. Like, maybe you put a flower, a plant species mixed with another animal, or some sort of inanimate object. I know there's like a plain open species that's like mostly a plain furry thing, which is really interesting, so you could do something like that as well. Yeah, so just pick species or different objects or things to include that you feel you relate to or represent you. The next part of this video would be talking about design. I'm a big fan of the whole silhouette rule. I don't think all characters have to be created in that way. I don't think it's always necessary, but I think it's a good way to like branch out and get yourself out of your comfort zone. So for those of you who don't know, the silhouette rule is that if you black out the character, take all the colors away from the character, and just have the silhouette, you should be able to recognize the character without even seeing it. Like, if you think of all the famous cartoon characters, Bugs Bunny, Roger Rabbit, just characters like that, Alex the Lion, you should be able to you can recognize them by their silhouettes because their designs are so distinct. Obviously, you do not have to create characters this way. Like Cyan, for example, her silhouette is very distinct because she is a stick with really long arms and slightly shorter legs. Oh yeah, I guess that leads me into my next point. So for design, obviously you can do whatever you want, but for Cyan, I based her off of myself. I am a stick, so Cyan is also a stick. I also gave her, I don't have long, my arms are not nearly as long as Cyan's, but I gave her longer arms to accentuate the lanky aspect of my own body. I also accentuated that by giving her like kind of a, like her chest is a little bit wider than like her hips and her stomach. So it makes her seem kind of like lanky and hunched over-ish, which I tend to be. But yeah, you can exaggerate certain features, like exaggerate ears, nose, paws, anything to like tails. You could give your character multiple tails, multiple ears, multiple eyes, like anything you want. I've seen a couple characters and a couple fursuits that are based off of like body horror type things or just different genetic mutations, and that's really cool. So yeah, you can do it that way. If you have a certain body type, you can represent yourself by having your character be that body type, or you don't have to do that. Or I guess if you think that there are certain aspects of character design that fit with your personality better, then you can do that too. Like, for example, if you've seen that post going around about Disney villains and how they're always shaped in an angular way, while the main characters tend to be like rounder shaped, like different shapes and different features will convey a different feel for your character's personality, and you could take advantage of that if you'd like. So the next part is colors, I guess. So me personally, I'm not a huge fan of neon color schemes. I think certain characters they do work with, but for me personally, I tend to not like the way they look, and I think it doesn't always look very good. I tend to stick to more natural coloring when I create characters personally, but I think bright color schemes or schemes with a lot of like unrealistic coloring, I think they can work if done well personally, but you obviously can pick whatever you want. I'd just say keep the color wheel in mind. Certain colors just do not look good together, or maybe if the colors are all the same hue and value, they might not look good together. I'd just say, I don't know if this is like me just being an artist TM, but I think you can kind of tell when you look at it whether the colors kind of mesh together. You can get other people's opinions if you want. I know me personally, also certain color schemes invoke certain feelings, so if you don't want that, then you probably shouldn't. Like, for example, I wouldn't create a character that has blue and green as a color scheme, because that just makes you think of Christmas, and it might be hard to take your character seriously. Things like yellow and black make you think of bees and like radioactive signs. So if that's what you want, go for that. But if not, you probably shouldn't. Orange is a tricky one, because like I wouldn't go for like orange and purple, because that's like Halloween. Unless that's what you want to go for, then go for that. But certain color schemes will invoke certain feelings, and if you don't want that, you should pick different colors. Also, I'd recommend picking, if you do want to go with a wilder color scheme, just make sure that all the colors mesh, I suppose. Probably stick to maybe 4 to 5 colors at the max, if not less. It's fine to keep it simple. It makes it easier, 1, if you want to commission a ref sheet, and 2, if you want to get a fursuit. So if you have a bunch of colors, then that's going to make it more expensive, because that's more colors that the maker has to buy. I'd also recommend maybe not doing crazy patterning. I know I'm a bit of a hypocrite on this one, because I chose to have tortoiseshell and white patterning for Cyan, but I had a reason behind that. Before my handle was Tangle Colors, it was Tangle Shadow. So as a kid, I was like, okay, what kind of coat pattern would convey the use of tangled shadows on a cat? And I figured, okay, well, tortoiseshell colors sort of look like light peeking in through leaves and stuff on the forest floor. So that's what I picked. So if you have a reason behind picking a whole bunch of colors, then I guess that's fine. But I would honestly refrain from picking way too many colors and too much complicated patterning, because it might make it harder for you to get art of this character, and it will definitely make it harder for you to get a fursuit for this character, because of how much faux fur colors cost. And like, if you have a bunch of tiny intricate markings, a fursuit maker is not going to be happy with you. An artist is probably also not going to be very happy with you. I mean, again, if that is what you want, like I did it anyway, then go for it. But I would recommend, just to make it easier, not to. And it works for a tortoiseshell, because that's how tortoiseshell is supposed to look, but it doesn't necessarily work for other color schemes to just have a bunch of tiny intricate markings and a bunch of colors. Yeah, there's also color palette generators, so if you're having a hard time thinking of color palettes and you want to not do something that's more natural colored, you can look at those, because typically those colors are cohesive in some way. But feel free to like experiment with the natural coloring of animals. I arrived at this color scheme for Cyan just by observing the different coat patterns that cats have. So like there's a bunch of different options. There's also albinism in animals, and like different types of like melanistic things that go on with animals. That's really cool. Yeah, also I would not recommend rainbow patterning. To me personally, it just doesn't look good, and especially if you want to commission a fursuit, it's going to be more expensive because that's like a 7 color pattern at the very least that these people have to buy faux fur for. It's also a pain in the butt for artists because we have to draw 7 colors in one character. And the way that rainbows are made, they're made to kind of stand out and be like super flashy and like low-key eye burning, so it tends not to look good. I've seen like pastel rainbow characters look okay, but in general I would not recommend that. Again, if you want to make a rainbow Fursona, you rainbow Fursona your heart out, but I personally just don't think it's a good idea for a color scheme. I think it's easier to go with more muted colors or just a different color palette entirely. I think the last step would be getting a reference of your character. It makes it a lot easier when you're commissioning artists or commissioning for a fursuit to make sure that the character actually looks the same or similar each time. So you have a couple different options. If you're an artist like myself, you can draw it yourself. You can use references from the different characters in media that are similar to that character to get the look that you're trying to go for. I'd say be careful with that because you don't want to copy anyone's designs. I think it's okay to take inspiration from other designs on some level, but at the end of the day, you need to make that design your own in a way that it is completely distinct, or at least somewhat distinct from the character that from the character that you got the inspiration from. Tracing is not okay. Don't trace unless the artist says it's okay. And also, like, when I say change it, it doesn't mean change 1 or 2 colors and have the same character basically with 1 or 2 colors changed and be like, that's it, that's my Fursona. You gotta do something else. Choose different colors, choose a slightly different body type, add wings, add several eyes, add ears, add another animal in there to change up the species look a little bit, something that makes it your own. Yeah, you can't just copy people's characters. That's not okay. That's their babies and you're stealing them. You can't do that. If you're not an artist, you can still draw it anyway. You can still do it. It might not look as good as you want to, but you can still do it. There's also bases. So there are free bases that you can use that are basically just a generic drawing of a species that you can either pay to use or some artists release them for free to use. I personally don't actually know where you can find bases because I don't use them. But if you guys know any links to any good bases, then please feel free to link them in the comments. If your character is not a traditional furry species, this might be hard to do because it won't have the specific combination or look that you're going for. But if the artist is okay and has said that this is okay, you can modify the base in some way. Your third option is commissioning an artist to make a reference for your character. If you do commission an artist to draw your character, I would still recommend using a base or trying to draw the character yourself. For artists, it's a lot easier to go off of a visual reference than any sort of like paragraph explanation. Even if you just have like 3 pictures of frickin' species that you had in mind, that's just better than no visual reference. Maybe some artists can do it without visual reference, but I know for me it's really frustrating and really difficult when a client doesn't have visual references and they're just kind of expecting you to know what they want. So even if you do a drawing that you think is crappy of your character, that's still something that artists can go off of better than like a written description or nothing. So I would still recommend using those bases. Those are the options you have. If you don't have any money, do not ask artists to draw things for free. That is the quickest way to get an artist to hate you and not ever want to see you again. If you don't have any money, you have a couple options. Save up so you can commission an artist that you want to commission. You can default back to drawing it yourself. Or occasionally artists have free like raffles open or requests. You can wait for one of those and see if you win or see if you get in. And if they're okay with it, you can ask them if you can get a reference of your character. But please do not ask artists for free art. Don't do it. It's a skill, it's a talent, it's something that takes years and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to develop. So when people are just kind of... It's like this. It makes you feel like your skill is not worth paying for, and it makes you feel like people aren't respecting the work that you're making. So please do not do that. Do not do that ever. So yeah, from there you can either just keep getting pictures of your fursona, you can write about them, or you can even commission a fursuit. If you do decide to commission a fursuit of your character, I would recommend that you have a front, side, and back view of your character, if not more than that, because it makes it easier for the fursuiter or the fursuit maker to make your fursuit. And you can commission something like that for a fursuit maker, or you can use I think bases do that naturally. I think that's all I could think of. Just have fun with your character. Just enjoy the baby you've created. Good, you did a good job. You created a fursona. I know also some people will have multiple fursonas for different parts of their personality, or like characters that they wish that they were like as their fursona. That's fine too. I personally did not do that. Cyan has all of my mess inside, like in her character and in her personality. It's just all my heckin' mess. But yeah, some people do different aspects of their personality, like their shy side, their happy side, their party side, their grumpy side. You know, you can do that too. You can have as many fursonas as you want. So I'd say get out there and have fun creating your fursona. Again, if you don't like these tips, you really don't have to use them. It's kind of how I personally go about creating characters. So if this doesn't appeal to you, feel free to disregard the advice. The most important part is that you have fun creating your character, and that you feel like it's an accurate representation of what you want the character to be, and that you're creating stuff and having fun. It doesn't really matter what I say or what other people say. This is just, if you wanted some tips about creating a fursona, this is the video for you. If you want to do your own thing, this video is probably not for you. Yeah, so get out there and have fun. Again, I still have Philadelphia merch that I'd really like to get out of my room, so please buy it. I will have visuals over there. Contact me at tanglecolors@gmail.com if you wish to buy any of the merchandise. There's a link in the description to the Tumblr post that has pictures of all the merch that you can buy. The supplies are actually pretty limited though, so please get your hands on it before it's too late. There's some pretty dang good stickers and frickin' shirts and stuff that you are definitely missing out on. So yeah, that's my video on how to create a fursona. This is Cyan the Tortat, signing out. Have a perfect day.
We'll never be alone, Savannah.